Starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, I'd like to convene the Single Family Design Board for September 28th. Can we have roll call, please, Mary?
Yes, thank you. So we have Chair Miller,
Here.
Vice Chair James,
Here.
Board Member Farrell,
Here.
Board Member Motisha,
Here.
Board Member Richards,
Here.
and Board Member Sweeney.
Here.
And Board Member Ziegler will be absent today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on the agenda, public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for this public discussion. Do we have anyone who would like to speak, or did we get any emails? Ted?
Chair Miller, we did not receive any written public comment for items that are not on today's agenda. And if you are attending this meeting and you would like to give verbal public comment on an item that is not on today's agenda, now is your opportunity. To do so, please click the raise your hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel as shown on screen, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak once staff calls on you. And I see several people in the audience, nobody raising their hand. So seeing none, I think we can move on to the next item.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on to the approval of the minutes for Single Family Design Board for September 14th, 2020. May I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, let's go through the items, please. So normally I print them, so I'm gonna have to read them from the screen, so bear with me. So the first item is 1460 La Cima Road. Second item is 135 Palisades Drive. Third item is 111 Calle Bello. Item number 4 is 813 Arguello Road. That being the conclusion of the minutes, can I have a roll call, please?
Wait, time out.
Yes, Jan.
Item number 1, we did not, that was continued. We didn't meet on that item.
Okay, can we look at that real quick? What does it say on there?
It
So,
was-
item was postponed. Okay, thanks for that clarification. Got it.
Mhm.
So with that being said, may I have roll call, please?
All right, so we have Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
and Board Member Sweeney.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item C, approval of the consent calendar for September 21st. May I have a motion, please? For approval?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I thought that September 21st, you guys didn't meet. One of those dates, consent didn't meet, either the 21st or the 28th. Ted, can you clarify that?
The 21st.
You did.
Was canceled?
It was the 21st that we,
Right.
Okay, so skip that. And move on to the next for today for September 28th. So I want to revoke our previous motion since that agenda was canceled. And so we're going to go back to September 28th. Can I have a motion for approval, please?
Chair Miller, I'm sorry
Yes.
to interrupt.
No problem.
To clarify, the September 14th consent meeting was canceled. We
Oh.
did have consent on September 21st.
Okay, then.
Thank you.
Well, this is keeping me on my toes here. All right, well, let's go back to September 21st, please. And Ted, could you go through the items for us?
Yes, Chair Miller. The first item on the September 21st consent calendar was 424 North Ontaire, and the motion was for project design approval and final approval with comments. The second item was 1136 Mission Ridge Road, and the motion was to continue indefinitely with comments. And then item C, 1611 Loma Street, and the motion was for project design approval with comments. And finally, item D, 2030 Anacapa Street, the motion was for final approval as submitted.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. So we have Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes,
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
and Board Member Sweeney.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to September 28th. We did have an agenda consent today, is that correct?
Yes,
Correct.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, great. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I make the motion to approve.
May I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Joe. Ted, could you please go through the items?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The first item was 306 North Ridge Road, and the motion was for project design approval with comments. Item B, 471 West Mountain Drive. The motion was for project design approval with comments. Item C is 102 Santa Rosa Place, and the motion was for final approval as submitted. And item D, 1607 Shoreline Drive, the motion was for approval of review after final as submitted.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. So we have Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
yes,
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
and Board Member Sweeney.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants or continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items and appeals. Do we have any of those? Ted?
Mr. Chair, at this time, staff does have just a brief announcement about an upcoming meeting. The October 12th meeting, we have tentatively scheduled a discussion with Amber Anderson of the fire department, just for a discussion of development standards in high fire hazard areas. So I just wanted to inform you of that. Other than that, staff does not have any additional announcements to make at this time.
I actually have a quick question. I know there was a recent meeting with the grading ordinance. Was anything developed of that, or will there be an announcement about that sometime in the future?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to defer to Irma Unzueta if she's available to answer that question.
And Mr. Chair, I did attend the meeting also.
Yes. Do you guys have anything you'd like to talk about regarding that?
Chair Miller, I wasn't sure if Board Member Sweeney wanted to go before me. I just wanted to inform the board that the ordinance, the draft grading ordinance has not made it to council yet. So we will be informing you about that when it gets closer.
Okay, great. Thank you. Fred, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, the discussion centered on the discussion among the subcommittee was their discomfort with the level of possible penalties that could be assessed against somebody that violates the grading ordinance. So they were uncomfortable. When I left the meeting, it sounded like they were going to move it to council for further discussion, but that's all I know. So there was no action that I know of.
Thank you. And there's one more item I'd like to bring up, and Irma, if you think we shouldn't, it's appropriate or not, but there was a recent vote on the city council regarding the tier stormwater management program. Is there anything we could talk about regarding that, what the final vote was? Does anyone have any information about that?
Chair Miller, I don't have any information about that. I mean, I know that it did happen. I'd like to give you a better a report once we can put that into maybe an email or report it to you the next time. But we can give you a better idea next time around.
That'd be great. I really think that would be important to include in the announcements. So, all right, great.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes,
have
Fred.
two other things.
Yes,
one
please.
is I got a call from a community member who's a professional in our field and was interested in placing going for a position on the SFDB and wanted a little background. And in process of checking who was up for reappointment, there's two of our members are up for reappointment for next June when their terms expire. And but it also indicated that Mr. Richards, his term was up due last June, and I was just curious whether or not Robert, you got reappointed?
I submitted the, so I'm not sure what, that's the first I've heard of that, Fred, so.
Right, so your term was up in June, right?
I mean, I was sent paperwork, reapply to get back in, so.
Maybe Mrs. Sweat can bring us up to date.
Yes, Chair Miller and board members. Sometimes when a board member's term expires, but there was no application submitted in order to be reappointed, the clerk's office will just keep that board member on if their term is not, if they're haven't been on the board for 2 terms. So I will check on board member Richards' status, and we will send out an email to those board members that need to reapply, even if you're on the board now and your term expires in December. You should be reapplying, and the city clerk's office was to send out to all incumbents that information, but we will follow up with any board member that has the whose a term is about to expire, and so because the interviews are happening pretty soon, and so you all should have received an email with all those dates, but we will give you a reminder email so that you all have it on your calendar. But certainly we'll reach out to those members that are that are pending in terms of their term being about to expire.
And I just want to clarify that I did fill out the paperwork that was sent within the last month, and that outlined, coming up that there was required another interview. So that's a first that I've heard of what Fred has just brought up, and I haven't
Right.
seen
So you'll just have to. So board member Richards, you'll just need to show up for one of the interview dates that council has and interview for the position.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. So.
It's just I guess a technicality sometimes, but it is part of their process.
Yeah, and the unusual thing about our board, as opposed to many of the other boards whose terms end at the end of the calendar year, apparently when our board was set up, they did it from the time it started, from June to June. So most of our terms end in the summer. So that's why it's sometimes a little bit challenging, because the interviews actually take place in, I guess, November or December before that June date.
Thank you, Board Member Sweeney. You just reminded me that the reason why Board Member Roberts didn't interview and get reappointed was because they did not have interview and appointments in June because of the COVID.
Right. So, and then my second item is, as you know, I was trying to find out how do we put on an agenda items for discussion, and I was told that any one of us could do that with a formal email, and so I did that with regards to a request to put on for discussion the Novak report, and a response was received on Friday. So maybe Ted or Irma could tell us what that response was.
Yes, Chair Miller and board members. Ted, would you like to go ahead and announce it, or you want me to
Sure.
continue?
Yes, Chair Miller, board members, we did receive an item or a request to place an item regarding basically just a discussion item regarding the Novak report and the results as it pertains to single family design board. Staff reviewed that request with the community development director and determined that at this point in time, it's not really an appropriate time to discuss that item. Staff is still working through the staff related portions of the Novak report, and there will be a discussion of the design review boards at some point down the line at a date to be determined. And at that time, we encourage or suggest that you could bring your comments and concerns and questions to those venues of discussion, which would be City Council and the LDT Oversight Committee.
So just to be clear, in terms of the Brown Act, we're not allowed to talk about the Novak report between any of us on this board other than in a public meeting, correct?
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Chair Miller, yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more announcement just to let you know on the record that the appeal for 160 Conejo Road was denied. So that was what took place last week. So the determination of the single family design board stands regarding that project. So with that being said, I think that's it for announcements. Anyone else, anything else I need to bring up regarding that? Okay, hearing nothing, we'll go on to the next item, which would be our next project. If we could scroll down, please, so I can see what the address is. 1460 SEMA Road. This is concept review. This is a new item, I believe. Is this correct?
Mr. Chair, this item was heard actually on July 8th, 2019. That was the first concept review. This is the second. The date noted in the agenda footer is incorrect.
I see it.
2019.
Oh, what was the date? Yes, because I was trying to look up the minutes. And I couldn't find it. There is no July 8th.
That's a typo. It should have been 2019.
Oh, okay. So I'll read into the record. Yes.
We do have the minutes available as well for your review.
Sure. Great. So I'll read into the record. It's a proposal to demolish an existing detached 449 square foot two-car garage and construct a new 702 square foot two-car garage with a new 698 square foot accessory dwelling unit on the second story. The lot includes an existing one-story, 1,987 square foot single unit residence. Project includes a new deck, and outdoor stairs, new retaining wall, and related site grading. The proposed total of 3,379 square feet of development on an 11,440 square foot lot in the Hillside Design District is 86% of the maximum guideline for floor to lot area ratio. No final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings and hillside design and slope lot findings. Project was last reviewed July 8th. So do we have a representative for this project?
And Mr. Chair, this is Ellen Kokinda. If I could just ask for the applicant's presentation, if all of the board members could turn off their webcams and mute themselves. And Mr. Chair, it's your discretion if you wish to leave your webcam on. It's your choice. And yes, it looks like Mr. Young is ready to go.
I'm gonna give him the floor.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, great. So we are here back over a year later with a redesign of our project. The original project was a 2-car garage with the ADU unit above that was located in the setback. And now we are coming back with a larger design with a 3-car garage and a 1-bedroom ADU, and we pushed that. Excuse me, sorry. Let me mute my phone. Sorry about that. I'm sorry. We were coming back with a 3-car garage and a 1-bedroom ADU unit, and we no longer requesting a mod to locate the project in the front yard setback.
Okay, and Mr. Young, I do see that Mr. Tracy is also online. Looks like he did join just a little bit late. I'm going to send him a webcam request and a microphone request, but we have the plans and all the submittal materials here if you'd like to go through them and just give the board an idea of what changed since last time you were here.
Okay, if you'd like to go to the next sheet, the A2, you can see that the garage no longer is in the setback. You can see the dash line, and it shows the existing garage at an angle, and it's a 2-car garage with a little workshop off to the right. And now we are coming back and locating a new 3-car garage outside of the setback. If you would like to go to the next page. This is showing the floor plans of the 3-car garage on the first floor, and then the second floor with a 1-bedroom ADU. We thought that this would be more in line with the owner's request to have a living unit for someone who can take care of them as they get older. So this is the long-range plan for this project, is to provide care so that they can stay in their primary residence as long as possible. If you'd like to go to the next page. So this one shows, if you look at the upper right, or I'm sorry, upper left, you can see dash line kind of indicates where the old garage is, and now and then superimposed over where we are proposing a 3-car garage and a 1-bedroom ADU. So this would be the street element on, or street elevation on Lacima. And so different elevations showing east-west elevations. And then if you go to the next page, A5, you can see the back side. This would be the hillside. And so we are proposing a garden room storage underneath the garage in order to, that we are removing a existing shed on the property. And so this would be an area for the owner to store gardening tools and such. And I think that is about it.
All right, Mr. Young, if that does conclude your presentation. Then we can move on to the public comment portion.
Okay.
And I just wanted to make a quick comment. I meant to make this earlier before the presentation. There is another typo in the agenda, unfortunately, calling the garage a 2-car garage. It is in fact a 3-car garage. However, the square footage noted in the agenda is consistent with what's on the plans. All right, and moving on to public comment. We did receive some written public comment for this item. We have 4 items in total. So 1 item from Mark Bassino, 1 item from John Cook, and 2 items from Scott McCosker to acknowledge. And if you are in attendance of this meeting and you would like to give verbal public comment, now is your opportunity. To do so, you may click the raise your hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel. You'll have 2 minutes to speak once staff calls on you. And looking at the attendees in the audience, I do see that Mr. Scott McCosker would like to speak. So Mr. McCosker, I'm going to unmute you, and once you begin speaking, the 2-minute timer will begin.
And Mr. McCosker, this is Ellen Kokinda. It looks like you need to unmute yourself. We're able to, I've sent you an unmute request. There you go. It looks like you just turned on your mic. Thank you. You have 2 minutes whenever you're ready.
Thank you. This application was before you, in front of you over a year ago, and you advised the applicants to relocate the ADU to the lower level of the property below the proposed new garage. The applicant now has come back with a larger garage and even larger AD unit with exterior staircase and large storage room underneath. The proposal increases the FAR on the property from 64% to 86%, which we feel is excessive. Additionally, the proposed 3-story accessory structure is on a parcel with a 1-story primary structure. This is contradictory to standard architectural practice. Accessory structures should be subordinate to the primary structure. Now the proposed structure is would be completely blocking the whole east side of our home. A building this close would invade our privacy and shine lights right inside our home. I sent you photos that show this. La Cima is a small cul-de-sac lane with houses primarily on the north side. 1460 La Cima is on a steep slope of more than 30%. The original garage was converted into living space and a carport was added. This was later converted to a flimsy wood-sided structure with makeshift retaining walls. We sent you photos on this. A 3-car garage is not compatible with the neighborhood. All garages are 2-car and are in the front setbacks due to the steep slopes. The current proposal would create an additional 3-story detached structure, which in no shape or form are compatible with our neighborhood size, bulk, and scale. It is also absolutely not compatible with the existing primary single-level low structure cinder block house. Once again, we support keeping the 2-car garage in the existing footprint building and relocating the ADU to below the street level. We respectively would like you to direct the applicant to follow your original direction to work with the topography of the property and nestle the structure into the hillside. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McCosker. If there's anyone else who would like to speak on this item, now is your opportunity to do so. Please click the raise your hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak once we call on you. Any other public commenters? Seeing none, we can move on to questions from the board.
Ed, real quickly before we do that, were there other letters that should be read on record to go on record?
Mr. Chair, typically staff does not need to read any public comment letters as long as they're sent to the board. It's generally not our practice to do so. I had been doing that before at previous meetings, and then other staff informed me that that's not the common practice.
Because I know in generally when we've had back in the old days when we were we'd kind of briefly go over the different letters that were received. So I'm just kind of curious, there were how many total letters that came in?
We received 4 items.
Okay, Irma, did you want to say something?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to indicate that we don't necessarily need to read the content of the letters into the record, but we can acknowledge the number of letters that were received and maybe the name of the writer or the author, but it isn't necessary to read the actual content because you have received them.
Great. So I just want to verify that sorry. So then I just want to verify. Okay, thank you. So I just want to verify that everyone on the board received those emails and are familiar with them.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I disagree with staff's position about not reading the letters. I'm not necessarily in favor of reading the letters, but I think it's important for the record to indicate the number of letters received and whether the letters were in support or in opposition. And so I believe we received 4 letters, and 2 of them were in support and 2 of them were in opposition, and that should be in the record. I don't understand why the staff takes that position. When people come in, and I know when I read the comments from ABR and from HLC, I want to know, were there people objecting or were they in support? I don't need to see the details. If I can always go further in for a request. But I think that's the minimum that should go in the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. So, yes, I think it is important to at least know who's supportive and who's against the project, or get their kind of overview feeling of it. So with that being said, I don't have a list of the board members in front of me. Ted, could you put it on the screen so I can go down to make a roll call, or so I don't leave anyone out on the roster. I need to see the roster. Okay. Board Member James, do you have any question?
Thank you, Brian. Chair Miller. Yes, I would hope that we could see the last iteration of the plan that we approved. Is that possible?
Ed?
Ms. James, Mr. Chair, we do not have the last plan that was reviewed available for this hearing. We do, however, have the minutes from the last concept review.
Okay, well, that would help, but this is the second time today we run into that issue. So anyway.
So I'll read the minutes out loud. Oh, go on, sorry.
Ms. James, Mr. Chair, I would ask for some clarification from Ms. Unzueta on staff's policy on presenting plans that were previously approved or previously reviewed for a continued item. It's not my knowledge of our process that we actually do that. Ms. Unzueta?
Oh.
Yes, Chair Miller and board members, we typically don't have the plans for the previous review.
That's not correct. I'm sorry, Irma, I'm going to interrupt you right now because I've been on this board for 8 years, and they do have them. They do have them. I've several, many times they've brought them up, and we've even put the past drawings in front of so we have. I apologize, but
when they bring them down, when we used to meet in person, the staff would have the previous drawings in the box, and if they didn't, they would run up and get them for us to look at it. So that was a normal practice. This morning at consent calendar, we had a project for review after final. We needed to see what we had approved because it was a review after final and those drawings weren't available. I understand the challenge of having to get that stuff under the circumstances of our COVID-19 process. But without that information, it makes it much more difficult for us to determine whether or not what we approved and how it gets changed in the request by the applicant in front of us. And this is the second time today this has happened. So we need to get into the practice of having those plans available. If it's difficult because of the electronic situation under COVID-19, then we need to find a way around that. But we need that information. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and board members, thank you for that. When I said typically, I meant during this remote situation. I know that that when we were physically in the building, we were able to do that. So given that request, we will begin to do that. And we apologize for not having them today. But again, as I said, we linked the plans to the agenda, and we haven't been doing that. So I think that, you know, the previous and the new, we do the current, but certainly we can have those available as part of the PowerPoint if needed.
I think it's critically important, especially when there is a previous design that the board had reviewed and we approved it. So we're kind of blinded when we don't, or we're not, you know, refreshed of what it was we previously approved. And in particular projects where we have neighbors that are rather outspoken about what's going on, I think that is kind of critical. So
that's
anyway.
Correct. And we would only want to, I would hope that the board would only want to see the previous iteration and not, you know, 4 or 5 iterations ago. So we can do that.
Good point, Irma. I think it would be the designs that specifically pertain to the minutes of the previous meeting would probably be the best criteria to locate, you know, whatever it was that we approved at that time. So yeah, you don't have all the previous drawings that are not really relevant. Would be what's pertaining to the previous minutes, I'd say.
Okay, understood.
Great, thank you. So Lisa, did you get your questions answered?
Well, we won't be reviewing the previous iterations, so no.
Well, if I can help you, the minutes are in front of us. We did say study moving the proposed ADU underneath the 2-car garage, explore options for moving the garage. It's kind of what we have at the moment, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Consider landscape screening between the 2 properties. Well, do these comments still apply to the current design?
Mr. Chair, I think generically they do. It will, by having a site and building sections, we hope the applicant has brought those back to us. That'll help us understand what's happening on the site with his currently proposed changes that are being presented today. And certainly there's still a screening issue between what he's proposing and the adjacent properties. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to see that today.
Thank you.
Is the architect in? Okay, Joe is muted. He wants to know why.
Mr. Chair and Mr. Motisha, board members, I will work on unmuting Mr. Motisha here. Also, if the applicant, Mr. Warner, would like to respond to the board's questions,
yes,
you're welcome to, and kind of describe any changes. Now would be your opportunity to respond to the board's questions.
Yes, this is Warner. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Mr. Warner, but I've sent you several webcam invitations. If you could please turn on your webcam so that the board can see you. And it sounds like it would be really helpful if you walk through some of the changes between what was seen from 2019 to today. So I understand a little bit more about those particular comments.
Sure, no problem.
And Warner, just like real quickly, Warner, we're all kind of struggling through everything being on webcam. So that's kind of,
It's definitely different. It's definitely a challenge. I'd rather sit in front of you and I could have brought in the last set of drawings, which I probably would have, and so this is all new. So yes, bear with me as well. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, differences, a couple of the things that we looked at. We did look at, I studied with the civil engineer, Howard Wittosh, about putting the unit below the garage, and that was getting into a lot of grading, a lot of different problems that we would have run into, putting in more retaining, removing more dirt, and so on. And one of the comments from the board last time, that was my understanding, that locating the ADU and the garage within the buildable area and outside of the setback was more favorable. I didn't feel that the comment was made that it was favorable to push the design and have it in the street, where we're trying to provide off-street parking because La Cima is very narrow. And so we were trying to not only create parking in front of the garage, but also in the garage. And we went to a 3-car garage option, because we wanted to provide a separate parking for garage for a person, for the caregiver that we're planning on having in the future. And we thought that this would be more attractive, more desirable. And then the neighbor, Scott, had requested that we not locate the entry on the left to the unit. So we switched it, we put it on the right so that you walk upstairs in that direction, so that they're not inhibited by people walking on that side of the property. And then also, as far as screening, there is bamboo screening on that side of the property that is, and the owner is definitely, we can come back with a landscaping plan to present additional screening from the neighbor. So we're just trying to create a reasonable design that satisfies the owner's needs, and also meets these kind of buildable area requirements, and not take up too much of our open space. Because if we did kind of tier or step our project up the hill, we would be taking up more land area and creating more non-permeable area. So this was one of the reasons why we're trying to keep it as a box and keep that kind of rectilinear shape to it. So the 3-car garage, again, was, I know it's not typical in the neighborhood, but we are trying to accommodate the ADU by having a parking space.
Did you address the landscaping, Warner, on the?
Yeah. So right now on the left side of the property, there is a bamboo hedge, and so along that length of that property there, to mitigate some of the view, we could definitely come back with the landscape plan and add additional screening.
So you don't have a landscape plan at this time?
No, we do not.
Okay, sorry. Lisa, was that it?
I assume we've looked at photos previously, and is that even relevant anymore?
If you
Since
have
it's
a request to see photos.
Since it's a year later, do you have photos on your plan?
I have submitted photo boards. There are 2 photo boards. You can see there that photo board, the upper photograph is showing the existing garage and workshop addition. So that's, you can see 2-car with a little workshop addition, and that is delineated in a dash line on the site plan. And then also the height of it is shown on the elevation drawing. If you want to scroll down, you can see additional photos. So this is looking back
Yeah,
toward
this is helpful.
Lacima. Yeah, seeing the existing one-story property. I would like to comment, though, that there are many two-story, just on this stretch of Lacima alone, there are many two-story projects. Not that that's relevant, but even the next door neighbor who is you know, being impacted by this project is also a two-story element. So, you know, and then if you would like to go down to the next photograph, this is the neighbor property. You can see, and then you can kind of see in the lower photograph, you can see that bamboo hedge. So we would like to continue some of that screening and you know, and to try to mitigate some of the bulk of this being seen from the neighbor.
All right, thank
this-
you. Could I see the,
Go ahead.
Are you done,
I have
Warner?
no more
Is that-
questions. No more questions. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, I believe so.
Okay, thank you. May I see the roster again? Sorry. Who's the next one on the list? Okay, Board Member Farrell, do you have questions?
I do. Can we go back to the site map that shows where the neighbor's house is? Yes, and Timmy, can you zoom in on the property line to the left where the garage is going to be located? So I'm trying to see what the distance is from the garage to the property line.
If you scroll up a little bit, you can see the setback. It's a 5-foot setback from the property line. And then 15
So-
feet from the street. So you
Okay,
can see.
So, and then the next door neighbor to the left, are they also just 5 feet to the property line as well?
Yes, in that you can see to the left there, the dark line, it represents their property.
Right, so these houses are pretty close together, right, near the property line. And so upstairs, what I'm kind of wondering about and what I'm sure the neighbors are concerned about is what windows are going to be on that left-hand side that are looking directly into their house. Can we see I'm not sure which elevation, but it would be on the left-hand side, show those.
Yeah, it would be the west elevation on, there you are. And there are two small windows there that are yeah, those two awning type windows are the two awnings. So they're for the bedroom. So they would be a high window in a bedroom.
Mr. Chair, this is Fred. I think staff needs to share with us the limitation of our review. I know that Jan just is posing a question, but as I understand, and maybe staff can confirm, we're not allowed to say anything about the second floor ADU unit, including locations, finishes, colors, nothing. Because of state law and the local ordinance, this is all subject to an objective list of standards that staffs review for the ADU. As I understand it, the only thing we can make comments on are the garage level. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Sweeney, Chair Miller, yeah, that's correct. The SFDB as a discretionary body does not have purview over the accessory dwelling unit that is being permitted under state law. Other elements such as the first level garage are under the purview of SFDB, however.
And just to be clear, Ted, on top of that, we are not allowed to say whether or not they can have the ADU on top of the garage under state law, correct?
Mr. Sweeney, that's correct. The board can't make formal comments about the location of the proposed ADU, nor can the board, require an applicant to locate an ADU in a different location. The board can say consider it. However, it's not the board's purview to require it.
And then the final question with our purview over ADUs is, I understand it, and may not have been adopted yet, is under the city's high fire area, the city's ordinance for ADUs has prohibited ADUs from being placed in the high fire zones of the city. And my question is, under either the current map or the future maps that are being proposed for high fire, including the coastal zone, is La Cima Road in that area?
Mr. Sweeney, this property is not currently in a high fire hazard area. I believe the new ordinance on accessory dwelling units as it relates to high fire hazard areas is going to council sometime in October. Those ordinance amendments have not been adopted yet. At this point, I can't comment on any new high fire hazard area maps, but this property is not located in a high fire hazard area per our records.
At this point in time. So they've already initiated this project ahead of any adoption of a new high fire. So they would be not under the, they don't have to apply to whatever new thing might be adopted in October, correct?
Mr. Sweeney, I believe that is correct. The applicant may have more information on the proposed accessory dwelling unit and its permitting. You know, the scope of this review and my role in this review is only the SFDB related portion of it. So Mr. Young, if you have any additional insights on the ADU, you know, your submittal for the building permit, that might be helpful. Otherwise, I can double check a couple of records and try to get a more detailed response.
No, it's my understanding that the this portion of La Cima is not in high fire. And so we started this project under those guidelines.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Sweeney, and for clarifying
Yeah.
that.
That was kind of, yeah, thanks, Jen. I agree. My question, I was gonna say, what is our
It's-
purview on this? So, yeah, go on. Are you?
I have no further questions. That's
So
it.
I apologize. Was that a question directed at me, Mr. Chair?
No, I just managed to interrupt everybody. That's all.
This is what it's like on a GoToWebinar. Okay.
It is, exactly. All right, thank you, Board Member Farrell. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions?
I had some questions, but I think thank you, Fred, for clarifying, for bringing all this subject up and talking about it. I think if I remember back, and it's been over a year, the last comment I made on the, I'm sorry, need to make this a question. It seems like we need to see what we had made comments on a year ago to proceed with this, because it seems to me, I'll ask Mr. Young, wasn't there a lot of room underneath that existing or your new garage? Wasn't there some storage area under the new garage? I've forgotten, and I need to see what you had proposed a year ago to follow up on what you made for changes. Well, again, wasn't there room underneath that proposed garage that you had proposed a year ago? And that's why we made the comment of maybe with our encouragement. It is true that we can't say whether that ADU should be on top of the garage or underneath, but we encouraged it, and we just brought it up, and you agreed that you would look into it. And now we're stuck with approving something that is on top of something else. And Ted, do we follow through here and just shoot in the dark? Or are we allowed to see what we had approved or not approved, but at least looked at a year ago, over a year ago?
Mr. Motisha, Chair Miller, I apologize. We do not have electronic plans available from the July 8th, 2019 meeting. Electronic plans were not a requirement until October 2019. So any electronic plans that we have prior to that date were, just submitted as kind of a courtesy. For this project, we do not have E-plans. I apologize for that. That's the best we can do at this time, given the remote meeting environment.
May I make a comment?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so if you look at this section that we have on the screen currently on sheet A4, if you just imagine this pushed forward towards La Cima another, I believe it was 7-8 feet, you can see by looking at the marker that I have as existing grade, we would have to do even more excavation in order to create a unit underneath the garage. As we have it right now, we're able to create maybe a third to about a half underneath the garage in order to create a garden shed tool area for the owner. But if you move that forward on towards La Cima, you would see that we're really not encroaching into the grade, the natural grade as it goes down. So this, if we were to go back to that scheme of last year, there would be an additional grading, additional removal of dirt, and also to a lot more retaining than what we're proposing now. So it was something that we did discuss with the owner. I did not ignore the board's comments. I had several meetings with Howard Wittosh, the civil engineer, and the owner discussing how we might make this work, and either cost or the amount of grading that we were doing, or the undesirableness of having this unit underneath the garage, because we would basically be creating a hole in the ground with only windows maybe on one or two sides of this, that it would be it wouldn't be very nice, and just is not really a really viable solution in our opinion. This is yes, I know this is a two-story, but again, my comment is that there are many two-story projects in this neighborhood, and so we're trying to, in this scheme, we're trying to avoid a modification. We're also trying to create driveway parking, and we're trying to create additional parking for the ADU instead of having somebody in the ADU park on La Cima, which is not desirable.
Was the proposal that you made a year ago, and I think it was, but I don't recall, was it two-story? And it was obviously smaller because it was only a two-car garage. But
yes.
Was it two-story at that time?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Okay, I think it was, because that's what brought the idea from us that maybe you could put the ADU underneath. Okay. That's all my questions right now. I have some comments, more comments.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Can I see the roster again? Who's after Joe?
I think I'm usually after Joe.
All right, Mr. Richards. You have any questions?
Yeah, I got a few questions. Whose bamboo is that's located on the side of the property, and how wide is that bamboo?
Right now, my understanding is that the bamboo is 12 to 14 feet high. You can see it in the photograph that we had shown. And I believe it is right on the property line. So but apparently it is the neighbors. it's, you know, that both parties are maintaining it. So it's kind of a joint, the bamboo is a joint effort, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So with your proposed plan, confident that you're not going to have to impact that bamboo?
That's my understanding.
We
But you know, like I said, we would definitely come back in the next round with a landscape plan and you know and it, you know, if additional screening is desirable, then we would definitely explore that option.
Could you see the site plan again, please?
But Joe, wait, it's not your turn.
Well, I think Joe's kind of what I'm getting at is that it looks like you're paving right to the property line, and then the bamboo is shown like it's just like a little squiggle in there. I don't think it's really, I guess this is a comment, but it doesn't look like it's accurately represented on the plan.
Looks
Okay,
like
well,
looks
oh,
like
I'm
it's
sorry.
looks like it's there, but it's grown a lot. And from the picture looking north, it looks like most of it is on Mr. Young, your project's property.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
Mr. Motisha, please reserve your comments until I call you so we could keep the timeline going.
Okay. And then the next question is on the site plan, there's a last sheet there, calling out for a bunch of swales, one of which looks like it runs all the way along the north end of the property line. And is the intent to have like a rock swale there that goes all the way down to a low point, or is that going to be planted, or how will that be detailed?
I would have to come back with that. We have a civil engineer on board that could make comments for how we are doing stormwater management. But if you look at between the two residents, there's a deck, or between the proposed garage and the existing residence. Underneath that, we're proposing to put in rainwater collection, and so we're working on stormwater management currently to try to mitigate stormwater runoff and keep water on the site. So there'll be definitely a full plan drawn as we move forward, and we can address those issues.
Okay. How big is the storage building that's underneath this garage that's proposed? I didn't see it in any of the plans.
I know we just have a section through it on the last page there. It takes about half of the garage area if you look in that section. So about 12 by whatever the width is. I'd have to look. Let me look at the plans real quick. I'm sorry. I don't have
So it's a full width of the garage.
That's what we're hoping to put in, you know, to give them ample storage. And you know, maybe it could be more than just a garden storage. It could be additional storage for the homeowners, or perhaps even the people who use the ADU. So, but this just kind of worked this way, pushing the project out of that setback, and we were able to create some space, and the owner would like to remove that garden shed that's on the site plan right now and move all of that type of material into that area.
Okay. And then with all of this work, I see on the first sheet, it says that there's 0 yards of cut and 0 yards of fill in terms of your grading. Is that because of some specifics within the ordinance, or is that, yeah, maybe explain to me how the grading is balanced that way?
From my discussions with Howard Witosh, the civil engineer, that we are trying to balance the cut and fill because of not having to cut into that grade too much, because we've pushed the thing back out of the setback. We're trying to, that would be our achievable goal, is to try to not remove the fill. So right now, until like I said, I can come back with the more detailed plans and give you an exact calculation, but that is our that is our goal, to try not to remove dirt and to try to make that work in grading wise.
Okay, I can understand the goal of that. Just when I can think conceptually of excavating out this storage space, I'd expect there to be some cut involved with it, but maybe I'm not seeing everything here. So I think that was my question. So you can go on to the next person.
Thank you. Board Member Sweeney, questions?
Yeah, I want to go back to, can we go back to the section you were just showing, please? Thank you. One of the questions I had is you had talked about your client wanting to age in place, and is it my understanding they're not wanting to age in place into this accessory dwelling unit, they just want to age in place in their current one-story home, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because I was going to ask about elevators, but that's irrelevant.
No, sir. No,
okay, I just wanted to get clear. So I will make, Robert, I'll make a comment about the grading issue when we go to comments, because it has to do with the grading ordinance that we talked about before the meeting or at the beginning of the meeting. Let's see. So the square footage of that storage area, the square footage of the garage, is part of the FAR calculation, correct, Ms. Freon?
Yes, I believe so, but I'll have to go back and check the numbers.
Because it's the storage is not a full basement. It has an opening to the city side of the site.
Right.
And the FAR under the rules, under the state rules, the square footage of the FAR, of the ADU is not counted in the city's required FAR calculation, correct? That's a question.
I do not know.
Mr. Sweeney, Chair Miller, I can answer that question. Accessory dwelling units are not counted toward FAR floor area in the non-coastal zone. That is inland, and that is where this property is located.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I think at this point, because you're only here for comments, we're taking no action today. You have no idea yet where external lighting will be on the building or on the ground? You thought about that yet?
No, we haven't gotten that far. We're just, like I said, this is kind of mass bulk and scale and revisiting the project.
Okay, thank you. That's my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. I see Mr. Ziegler's on board. Do you have any questions?
No, I got
Mr.
in
Ziegler?
too late, so I'm gonna have to pass this time.
All right, thank you very much. I don't have any questions at this time. I have a lot of comments, but I'll wait till that comes up. So I will bring it back to the board. To Board Member James, do you have any comments?
Oops.
Unmute yourself, Lisa.
I'm so sorry. Okay, to follow up on what Board Member Richards said, talked about the bamboo. You have an extremely invasive situation, and it's nice that both neighbors agree to maintain it, but that bamboo is going to be a huge maintenance problem in the future. And if you're putting in screening down below, my advice would be to get it out before it comes up 40 feet away from that planting and everywhere in the neighborhood. My next comment would be I'll be curious to see the resolution of the cut and fill issue and the illumination a little more about stormwater. That'll be all my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Board Member Farrell, any comments, please?
I don't have any comments.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Motisha, any comments, please?
Now at this time, this project can be back in front of us. I will make comments at that time. I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Richards, any comments?
Yeah, I'll agree with Lisa that bamboo seems like kind of an issue. The plans look like it's being proposed to pave all the way to the edge of the property line, and yet you're talking about maintaining this bamboo for screening. So I think one or the other needs to be kind of resolved. And then the plans also show a swale along the north property line going all the way to the corner of the property where there's a vegetated swale of some type, and I think some detailing of how that is going to actually happen would be great. I just get concerned about, what is the impact on the neighbor downhill of cutting this swale in there, and if it's not planted, you're running water down the surface. And just like to see some detailing of how all of that is going to work. And then also in the front, there's also the same call out for this vegetated rock cobble bioswale. So what's going to be planted in it? And of it, and then just call out for some ceramic rain jars. An idea of what these things look like in front of the home would be helpful. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Board Member Sweeney, any comments, please?
Yes. Let's see. First of all, the neighbors that are concerned about the height and size of this building, I would suggest you talk to your state legislators who initiated this law on the entire state of California. So, because there's nothing we as a board or even as a city can do much about these ADUs. So that's out of our purview. I am indeed agree with my landscape colleagues on the board that we need to see a thorough landscape plan on how this works. I would also request that the staff pull up the old hard drawings and scan the previous site plan, the previous floor plan, and the previous elevations so that we'll see those in response to Mr. Motish's concerns when this project reappears to us at its next iteration. With regards to the grading, that's why I've requested on several occasions for the building department to come and talk to us about grading, because in fact, in several ideas, including this, or several projects, including this one, we're supposed to make slope lot design decisions. And I'm not sure all of us, including myself, have a clear understanding of the grading ordinance that's now in play. But as I understand it, in my last review of the grading ordinance and listening to the chief building official at the ordinance hearings, is that grading that is involved with the setting of foundations, the excavation for basements, or partial underground areas under the footprint of a building is not considered grading. So those don't come under the purview of the normal grading we might think that would be spread onto the site, et cetera. So I hope that kind of helps you understand that there's a differential between the amount of soil that gets moved around because of construction of a building versus the amount of soil that gets moved around on a site. They're two different things. So I don't know that helps you, but that's why I've been asking for that assistance from the building department so that we as a board could understand some of the nuances of what happens with grading. With regards to the elevations, if we could go back to that westerly elevation, I think it is. Yeah, the west elevation. The part that we do have purview over is the garage. And I would suggest strongly when you return that you eliminate any windows out of that garage on that west elevation. They certainly can be placed on the north elevation or the east elevation, but that would eliminate any issues of privacy or at least light transmission between the two properties, the property to the west. So also be very careful about any proposed surface lighting on when you return to show us where lighting may be applied to the building. We are in a night sky, but also be aware of the adjoining property. Because this is being set back now, so that you're not required a modification, I'm assuming there's paving materials that are going to be put onto the driveway. I assume they will have to meet the tier 3 non-permeable paving requirement. So we'll want to see that. With regards to the overall size, bulk, and scale issue, this board, in my view, can't really make those findings because of the ADU component. So we're really prohibited to make a lot of comments about that issue. Those would be my comments for when the project returns to us for any type of action. I don't believe we're ready to give it any project design approval until we see these kinds of corrections. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any comments? I guess not. So, yeah, my comments are I'm extremely conflicted with this project simply for the fact that we really can't comment on the size, bulk, and scale other than on the garage part. My feeling is it's quite literally like putting another house between two houses. And if this was a single family home, it couldn't be built there because it's too close, but because it is a garage and because it's an ADU on top, you're able to do that. So in the normal circumstances, I would say the size, bulk, and scale is not appropriate. Granted, it's not in the high fire hazard, but it looks like a disaster waiting to happen if there was a major fire to go through there and these buildings were to catch on fire. So I'm very uncomfortable with that. But again, as Fred points out, it's not our purview. So I guess my feeling is I can't support the garage. So I think I'm going to go on record as being against this project because I think the garage is too big since I do have purview over that. And simply because I feel that the politics that are behind the ADU is to address a housing crisis, which really doesn't exist. It's a housing affordable issue. And as we all know, population is leaving more than coming into California at the moment. So this whole thing has turned into something that I don't think was its original intent. I do understand what the applicant was trying to achieve here. But I think the ADU is huge for the needs for what this family wants. But again, I can't talk about that. So I'm on record. I can't support this project as it is. And I guess the only thing I can say is somehow reduce the size of the garage. So that's kind of my feeling of the matter. So anyway, that's my saying of it. With that being said, anyone else have any other comments?
Yeah, Brian, may I have a request? I would
Sure.
like to see some pictures of I guess it would be the north elevation of the garage, of the existing garage. And I don't think we have seen any right now. And in his next presentation, I would like to see a picture of the north elevations. North elevations that face the city. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mutisha. So would someone like to, I guess this is for comments only. So would someone like to entertain a motion?
Okay. I will.
Who's that, Lisa? Who's that, Lisa?
Yes.
Thank you.
The board would like to give this project the following comments. That when you return to us the next time, we would like to see possibly eliminate the windows on the garage to mitigate any privacy views on the west elevation as it's shown, that you show us your surface lighting, that you return with a full landscape plan and show us how the civil engineer resolves the storm water catchment and management. And if there's a swale, a bioswale, what it's planted with. We suggest that you look at the invasiveness of the bamboo that's between the two properties, and perhaps choose a different screening material that'll be less of a maintenance problem for you both in the future, and possibly will stay out of your plumbing. We also will be curious about the grading findings that as it relates to the new ordinance that the city put out. I believe that's the right way to say that. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And we want to see what sort of permeable pavement you might have in your new iteration. Also, return with the previously approved plans so we can see what we're comparing to. How's that?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion with one correction, Lisa. There is no grading ordinance at this point. There's no revision. The whole discussion is in limbo. So, but it is pertinent to the existing grading ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Fred. So can I have a roll call, please?
Did someone second it?
Yes, Fred.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
All right, this is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Miller,
No.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
I'm going to vote yes with the intention that the applicant will return with appropriate corrections, and I'll reserve any final approval at the next meeting, or project design approval at the next meeting. Thank you.
and we have Board Member Ziegler.
Jonathan?
We can't hear him.
Think you're muted.
I think Mr. Ziegler is unmuted, but we can't hear you right now. But I think you missed a portion of this project, so he was
okay.
going to be abstaining from it.
Okay.
One clarification for the minutes, and I will ask Irma or Ted to respond to this. Ms. James had mentioned the approved plans from 2019. Those weren't approved. It was just what was reviewed in 2019. So I just want to make sure that that's clear for Mary and creating the minutes and what you're approving or what you're continuing.
Thank you, Ellen.
Great, thank you. Good.
And Mr. Chair, that
right.
is correct. The previously reviewed plans were only reviewed, not approved.
Okay, thank you. Irma, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I just was going to recommend that Board Member Ziegler abstain from this item.
Okay. All right, thank you. So has everyone voted?
Yes, the motion carries. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Moving on to the next item. Do we need a break?
No.
Okay. All right. Is this a new item or a returning item?
Mr. Chair, this item is a new item. and staff will have brief comments on it. I believe now would be the appropriate time. So this is just a note for the board members and any members of the public tuning in. This property recently received review and approval of a second-story deck on a proposed accessory dwelling unit under a separate permit. The deck received project design approval on August 31, 2020, and this applicant submitted this application separately from the proposed accessory dwelling unit because the ADU is on a separate permit, and they wanted to, move on a different timeline on that. The second floor ADU deck did not require a mailed notice per municipal code noticing requirements. Since the project in front of you today involves over 2,000 square feet of additions, this project did require mail noticing. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, would you like to read the description into the record, please?
Sure. One moment. Let me make my. Okay. The proposal on 1560 La Vista de Luciano Drive, here for concept review. The proposal is for a 2,170 square foot addition to the existing residence, including an attached 440 square foot new garage. A new pool and detached accessory dwelling unit are under separate permits. The project site is located on a 15,603 square foot lot in the Hillside Design District with an average slope of 24%. The proposed total of 4,358 square feet of development is 100% of the maximum allowable floor to lot area ratio. No final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. Project requires NPO findings, hillside and slope lot findings.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have representatives for this project? It looks like we do.
And Mr. Chair, this is Ellen Kokinda. If I could just ask all of the board members to please mute themselves and to turn their webcams off during the applicant presentation. And we have Mr. Gregory and Mr. Reese on the line as applicants. And Mr. Reese, I've sent you an unmute request, but you could also click the microphone icon in order to get audio. And please go ahead when you're ready. Thank you.
Justin, I guess I'll move forward with the presentation. I'd like to thank the Santa Barbara City Planning Office for the opportunity to present the proposed Reese Residence addition/remodel project located at 1560 La Vista del Oceana. The project proposed is to be the main residence for a growing family consisting of Justin and Tanya Reese and their two young children, son Logan, born a few years ago, and now daughter Scarlett, with Scarlett being born just last Wednesday. So we have a new mother in the audience here, and very excited about the potential project. The proposed project is really a 1,865 net square foot addition to a 2,493 net square foot single family residence, with the first floor addition adding a new garage and using the existing garage for an office and gym for Justin as he works out of the house. In addition, the first floor expanded to allow for a new 2-story, mostly glass entry with a steel staircase to the second floor. The remainder of the existing floor will be 4 bedrooms, a family room, and a laundry room, using most of the existing layout as is. The second floor will consist of the newly enlarged and transformed level for the public spaces of the house, living area, dining, and kitchen, as well as a new master suite at the west end of the house over the new garage, and a new office for Tanya at the east end of the house, overlooking the pool and the view to the ocean towards the southeast. The architecture of the house is contemporary 2-story ranch style with a blend of sloped roofs and flat roofs, with the sloped roofs being the majority of the roof area. The roof is proposed to be an asphalt shingle that is California Title 24 heat gain reflectant compliant. The exterior materials of the house will be composed of a medium gray smooth stucco for most of the body of the house, with accents of Ipe wood at the garage door and the front entrance gate. The roof is proposed. Yes.
Hold on, Bill, sorry to interrupt you, but due to the fact that we're doing everything on Zoom, is it possible you can go to the elevations while describing your home?
Sure.
It'll help us a lot.
The elevations would be on page 7. These are the proposed elevations of the house. Up on the upper left, you have the main west elevation with the new garage and the new master bedroom up above it. The garage door shown with an Ipe wood door and also an Ipe wood pedestrian gate. That would be the main entrance into what we would call a new courtyard, entry courtyard to the house. And behind, you can see 3 stacked windows paired next to each other. That would be the steel stair entry going up to the 2nd floor. And under the right of that same image, you'll see a tapered fireplace chimney that we would be retaining in the new scheme, but extending the chimney up above the new roof. On the image on the right of that sheet is the eastern elevation, showing a hipped roof that was of a slope that's very similar, reminiscent of the Spanish style architecture, as well as the finish would be a stucco, a smooth stucco, also very reminiscent of the area. The coloration, we're looking at a medium gray for the stucco work, and the roof would be a darker gray. The railings, etc., we haven't decided on yet, but it'll be some type of non-reflective metal and possibly a Ipe wood top or something similar. If we scroll down to that sheet to the south elevation, which is the main elevation that fronts the ocean, we can see the public spaces up on the upper part with a 10-foot high floor-to-ceiling sliding glass wall that opens up onto a 12-foot deep by almost 50-foot long terrace. And then to the left of that image, you'll see the second hipped roof, which would be over the master bedroom, opening out onto its own terrace. We have decided to make the stair and elevator and some of the support elements of the house more of a flat roof. So we have a nice combination of slope roof and flat roof, as well as the existing fireplace tower. On the image down below, the north elevation, and also note that this elevation is 30+ feet away from the property line. So there's quite a bit of distance between the property line and this elevation. This shows the back of the house with also the slope roof, flat roof, and the slope portion of the master over on the western end. If we can zoom out to look at it all, at the overall, we have a composition of a house that's a contemporary, but it's also very in keeping with a lot of the Spanish revival houses with the hipped roofs, the stucco work, the tapered wall of the fireplace, as well as a courtyard when you enter. So we feel like we're trying to blend contemporary with that classic Santa Barbara feeling of a residence. We would like to take a look at the existing condition plan. Let's go back to sheet 3, and then we can take a look at the existing house. We have images up on the top showing the existing house. We can scroll from left to right. On the left one, we're looking at the west end of the house, plus the garage that we would convert into an office and gym. And we would remove that portion of the sloped roof and build the new second story above that. And the new garage would project out in front of that existing garage approximately another 24 feet. The project itself is situated on a flat lot, so there's really very minimal grading except for probably some foundation work along the perimeter. And then the image to the right in that same view that we're looking at, you can see an aerial looking from the southwest back towards the house with the existing fireplace chimney that we would retain. We have an existing amount of sloped roof that would also be replacing with a new sloped roof with a new material, but keeping in character with the existing house. And then the view next to that to the right is a view almost directly from the south, looking at it where we have a large amount of glass area and some existing wood trellising that would be removed with the new project. In that same image, you can look up and see the houses behind, which are the closest houses to this project. And you can see the height, they're approximately 30 to 40 feet above the height of this house. So we feel as though there's not a view competition between this house and the houses behind. They should still have a wonderful view looking over top of this house. And if we span over one more view to the right, This is one more view looking at the hillside above there, and one more view to the right. And I guess let's go to the second view on this left side. I'll zoom in on that. No, it was the same, yeah, same images that. One of the items that we're talking about is also the placement of a new ADU on the property. So if we could scan over to the photos to the right of this, the second to the far right. There, right there in that area, just behind the grassy area, that slope is where the new ADU will be located. And that's a separate permit done by a separate architect in a different, separate submittal. We can scan down to the existing plans now below this. We can look at the diagram at the lower left-hand corner. This diagram is a section, cross-section through the site, the slope behind the house to the north, as well as the property above it, which is located at 1562 La Vista del Oceano. And it shows the height difference between our property and that property up above. And the first level of that property are garages and a driveway. So the views really from that property are from the balcony. And so we feel as though we're, you know, our project, even if we were to go up to the height limit of our project, which would be 30 feet, and we're not going close to that, we would not be blocking their view to the west and to the south. And we can scroll back to the overall view of the same sheet. If we zoom in on the elevations on the left-hand side, I have located some dashed lines showing the comparison of the existing house to the proposed project. The dashed lines show the scale and scope of the proposed new addition and how it's larger than the existing, but somewhat comfortable, I think, in its new size. Showing the same sloped roof of a different pitch. Our pitch that we're showing there is a 3 and 12 pitch. I believe the existing one is a 4 and 12. Okay, I think we can go to the floor plans at this point. The new floor plans, please. That would be on page 5. Yes. On the upper portion of the sheet is the second floor plan. And one of the interesting ideas with this house is that we've done what they call a flipped house or a reversed house, where the public spaces are up on the second floor. One of the wonderful characteristics of this site is the beautiful view to the south, the east, and to the west. And the old house had all the public levels at the ground floor, and there were a lot of trees maturing, blocking some of their view. So what we decided to do is elevate all of the public rooms that were more view dominant and put those onto the second floor and develop a larger deck, which the living room, dining room can spill out onto, with the kitchen towards the north side of the floor plan. On the left side of the floor plan, you'll see the master bedroom, master closet, master bath, study area, and a pantry, as well as an elevator. Nowadays, a lot of projects we're incorporating elevators for, as we get older, we'd like to be able to utilize those two-story houses without the encumbrance of having to go up the stairs. And on the right-hand side, we see study 1. That's an idea towards Tanya's office, where you would have a nice corner window looking out onto the ocean to the southeast. And down on the first floor, we can scroll down. On the first floor, you see in the hatched area, the new addition to the left, which is the new garage, two-car garage, as well as then just below that to the right is the hatched area with a new entry to the house, as well as a new stair bringing you up to the second floor. The old stair was really centered in the middle of the family room, and it was kind of an element that everyone had to walk around to go anywhere. And so the idea was to pull it out of the main body of the house to free up the open space. Now we've converted the old living room into a family room. We've kept 2 existing bedrooms on the east end of the house, laid out exactly the way they are currently laid out, and a bedroom on the north end and a bedroom on the south wing, utilizing space that was more storage and just open area. And then we've located a laundry where the kitchen used to be and a new bathroom down in that area. And Justin's office is utilizing the old garage. And then one other element you can see on the right-hand side of the plan, there's a stairway along the side that's accessing the second level terrace that would bring one down to the pool. So if we go to the site plan, which would be sheet 4, we can zoom in on that. On this, we can see the location of the proposed pool, which would be within a lawned area. We haven't developed any landscape plans yet, but we will be working on that as we proceed further. And directly behind that pool, you can see in the hatched area the proposed new ADU that would be built into the hillside. It's a 2-story ADU, but it's cut into the hillside and has a very low profile on the backside to the north. In this site plan, you can also see the dominance of the sloped roof area to the minimal portion of flat roofed area. We would like to put our HVAC equipment up there and screen that very nicely with some grills and walls, so no one would see that from the top, and have an emergency or maintenance egress skylight or hatch to that area to allow for maintenance, and once in a while getting up to the roof deck up on that level. I think that's probably about it as far as the description of the project. So I'd be more than willing to open it up for discussion, unless Justin and Tanya would like to have something to say.
No, thanks, Bill. I guess the only thing that I would apologize for not being prepared is that we saw that our neighbors had some feedback, and that's the fault of our own. We thought that we would go through this first design review and get your feedback, implement that feedback, and then go to the neighbors. So it caught us a little bit by surprise, and we kind of felt like we didn't plan properly. So, but we can definitely do that by next time.
Well, I'll chime in here. What kind of early feedback did you get?
The feedback from the house above us at I think 1562 was just concerned about the style, the height of the house. Just had some general concerns about it. And I have not spoken with them about our project whatsoever. So I would have felt much better, catching them in advance, which is what I should have done. But that's water under the bridge now, and we'll work with them kind of moving forward after we get your feedback.
All right, thank you. Ted, was there any public other comments or emails?
Mr. Chair, we did have one item of written public correspondence from a Sandy Verma, and other than that, that was the only item. And now at this time, if you are attending the meeting and you would like to give some verbal public comment regarding this item, now's your opportunity. Please click the Go to Webinar Control Panel raise hand icon as indicated on screen. Once staff calls on you, you will have 2 minutes to speak. And I saw a hand go up for Ms. Verma, and then it went back down. So there it is again. So, okay, Ms. Verma, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, and then please unmute yourself on the GoToWebinar control panel by clicking the microphone icon, and you will have 2 minutes to speak once you begin speaking. Okay, you've been unmuted. Now you have to click the microphone icon, and you can begin speaking.
I think that is it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, welcome to our new neighbors. I'm sorry to be the one to rain on the parade. And yeah, we were definitely caught by surprise. We did just a cosmetic remodel, didn't change the footprint. We had to send letters, attend a whole bunch of hearings. We weren't doubling the size of our house and adding an ADU that doesn't have a lot of detail, and we had to go through all that. So I'm just shocked that the lack of transparency in the process. I understand it is state driven, but I think that is not kind of the great spirit, to that law. Our main issues, and I'm speaking not just for myself and my husband, Vic, but also for Dr. Andrew Mester and his wife, Sine. So we are the neighbors directly above. The overall concerns are just the size. It's, basically doubling the size of the home. I'm very concerned about the ADU, primarily that it's 2 levels with a deck. We really have no information on it other than it's about 26 feet wide, as I can see on the plans. Would love to know total square footage of both levels as well as the overall height. Would really hope that perhaps consideration would be given to maybe reducing the size of the main home so that the ADU would not have to be on the slope. And although I do appreciate the architect's comments about not obstructing our view, we also are in the process of building an ADU on that driveway level, and it will absolutely, impact our view. So we'd like to ask that either it go to one level and or the general size of the home be reduced so it could be on a non-sloped area. I am an interior designer, so I'll give that caveat. I definitely do not see this home as Spanish. It's full contemporary. It's a beautiful home. It's lovely, but all of the homes are either nondescript in that neighborhood or very Spanish or Spanish contemporary. I think given the railing style and, despite the hip roof, I'm a little bit disappointed that it doesn't have more of kind of
Ms. Verma, I apologize for the interruption. The 2-minute period has passed. I apologize to interrupt. We just want to give every public commenter an equal opportunity to speak.
Okay, that's all right. That pretty much covered the majority of my concerns.
All right. And if anybody else in the audience would like to give public comment on this item, now's your opportunity. I do see one person in the audience still. If you'd like to speak, go ahead and click the raise your hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel, and you'll have 2 minutes. Don't see anybody else with their hand raised, so we can move on to questions from the board now.
Ted, I do have a real quick comment. You said we got a letter from Sandy. What was it positive or supportive or concerns spoken?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to address that a little bit as well. I believe staff has been given direction from the city attorney not to interpret public comment.
All right, can you read it? Can you just read it directly then?
I can.
I never saw the letter. That's why I'm concerned. I don't know. Has anyone else read the letter?
Read it. Just let me pull it up really quick. Hang on.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to indicate that if Ted reads the entire public comment, that should be okay. And it's exactly what he said, that we've been advised by the city attorney's office not to try to interpret. So,
Okay.
When we say they're opposing or supporting, that's really not our authority or our purview to say. But if he reads the entire comment letter, then that should be okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and Ms. Unzueta. Okay, I have the written public comment up on the screen now, so I'll go ahead and start reading it. Good morning, city officials. My name is Sandy Verma. My husband Vic and I live above 1560 at 1562 and are very concerned about the proposed remodel and ADU. We are in the process of designing our ADU as well and wanted to provide a heads up to the city as a result of being notified of the 1560 changes. Could you please send or provide a link for the ADU and addition remodel and any other additions or alterations, solar, etc., in advance of the meeting? I wasn't able to locate it on the website. I will also contact your office to see if someone can direct me to exactly where to find the documents. I understand there is a meeting taking place this afternoon. Although we are always happy to see improvements to structures in our neighborhood, we are concerned with the style of addition and not being Spanish, in addition to the sheer size, number of structures, and height of changes, additions, and modifications. I plan on attending the meeting virtually. Thank you, Sandy and Vic Verma.
Oh, sorry, Ted, was that the person that just spoke?
Mr. Chair, yes, that was.
Okay, I didn't know that, so sorry. Got it. All right, I'm going to bring it back to the board for questions. So I'm going to go down the list. Board member James, do you have any questions?
Ms. James, you need to unmute yourself.
She said she is, and you guys have her muted.
Okay, thank you. No, I keep pushing the button and nothing happens. So, thank you. I do. I have a couple of questions. Can you go back to the elevation that shows the entry, please? Yes. If you could zoom in on that main residence entry proposed 4 there. Okay. Are you is the front door, the man door next to the garage, or the inset double door next to the stack of windows?
Question? I apologize. You're asking me?
I'm trying to ask the applicant.
Yes.
Yes. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please. I'm sorry, I had an interruption there.
Okay, is the man door next to the garage door the main entry door, or is it the two recessed doors or windows there that?
Well, that's a gate. It's actually just an extending exterior wall. That's a wood gate that would allow you to walk into the courtyard, which is the entry. Then the actual entry door to the house would be about 30 feet back. So it's really a door to a courtyard.
I'm sorry, but I'm confused, but maybe a plan view would help that situation.
So if you look at the plan on the lower, you go back to the plan you just had, please. Yes, this on the lower, the main floor. Moving to the left. Here's the gate. Here's the gate. It's just a gate going to a walkway that leads you to the front door.
And the front door is there.
That's correct.
Okay. Next question. Have you eliminated the eave on the main residence? That's a number 1 on elevation 1.
All of the roofs will be removed in the new project.
Okay, so you have no overhang there.
Well, you can see the shadows. You can see the shadows in the elevation that the roof is casting.
Okay, but it just looks like the left end of your elevation. It just shows that the roof.
Yes, we're cantilevering out a good portion of the roof on the south side, and so we're pushing some structural items. And I didn't want to push it any further with cantilevering out an eave on that side. That's once we get into structural engineering, if we can push it out on that side, we will, if we could.
Okay, and if we get, okay, that's the back of the house right there.
And that's the east end too. So it's not the high sun, sun risk area.
Okay, I'll reserve everything else for comments. Thank you.
Sure.
Next.
Me. Yeah, I don't have any questions at this time, Brian.
Okay, sorry, I was muted. All right, thank you. Okay, board member Motisha, any questions, please?
Yes, I have a question. Is the pathway, let's call it a pathway, from the front door, which looks like a door to the garage, is that covered? Is that pathway covered from that door to the front door?
Yes,
Oh, yes.
that's correct. If we go back to the south elevation, we can see that very clearly.
I see that it is.
On the south elevation, you see the shadow cast by, there's a terrace there for the second story master bedroom. And that terrace is casting a shadow on the garage wall behind it. So that will be a covered walkway there leading to the front door.
Okay, I have, I think it's very I mean, you explained it very thoroughly. I have some comments when that time comes. Thank you. I'm finished.
Sure, great.
Thank you. Board member Richards, questions, please?
Yeah, at the third level where you're describing the flat section of the roof, is the intent for people to be able to go up there and use it as a roof deck, or kind of rated that a little bit?
Well, it's a since we have 10-foot ceilings on the second floor to create a nice generous volume, and there's some programs on that second floor that don't need such a high ceiling. So what we've done is we decided to put some of our rooftop equipment up there instead of hiding it inside the house. And we created it generous enough so that one could use it if they wanted to be able to use it. But the primary role is to be something for the mechanical equipment and to be able to get up and work on the roof if they need to work on the roof.
There's no staircase leading up there. We just wanted to do like a pull down ladder, if that addresses that concern.
Okay. I think that was my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Sweeney, any questions, please? Mr.
Sorry.
Sweeney, are you there?
Yeah,
There you are.
Sorry, it took me a second to get everything flipped back on. Let's stay on that elevation. I'll start my questions there. On the right-hand side, I guess that's the east, there is a vertical, is that a steel column, set of steel columns from the second floor deck to the roof and from the first floor to the deck?
Yeah, we're exploring that. Like I mentioned, we haven't hired on the structural engineer yet, and we have quite a deep roof overhang. And so we have steel columns in some images and don't have steel columns in other, it's a conceptual review. So we'd rather not have them. And if structurally we can do the roof without them, that's the way we would like to proceed. If we need them, we'll put something in there.
Thank you.
But if we need them, I think from a design standpoint, we'd rather have not a steel look, if that was a concern.
We'll wait until we get the comments. Can we go to the site plan, please? So the ADU is off to the upper right, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Ted, did we reviewed that project, even though it's an ADU? I think we reviewed it for the deck, did we not?
Board Member Sweeney, Mr. Chair, yes. That project, the only thing in the SFDB's purview was the second story deck. The ADU itself was not reviewed.
Which we approved, correct?
Correct. It received project design and final approval on August 31st.
Okay, thank you. And that was a different architect according to the owner and the presenter today, correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, the other question, could you zero in on the rooftop where is proposed to have the HVAC units? So when you say HVAC, are those just the compressors? What are those? What's anticipated to be in there?
Those would just be the compressors. Yeah.
And is there you're indicating what appears to be a wall completely around it with a screen on top? Is that what's going on?
It's a frame. It would be a frame with a mesh side and a mesh top. So that
okay, so that mesh side and a mesh top. Do you have a section through there running north-south?
Through that mechanical screening equipment?
Or in that roof area somewhere, do you have a section?
If we go to the final sheet 8, I have my sections there. We can take a look.
Okay, so if I'm looking, section 3, I guess.
And section 5. Section 5 is through the garage and the master suite.
Gotcha, right there. Okay, so up on top, that HVAC is going to sit in there somewhere between the 274 and 276 mark.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Let's see. And then the plate heights, we can stay on the sections. Doing the math, it looks like the plate heights on the second level are 11 feet. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
No, it should be 10 foot. They're 10-foot ceiling on that level.
Right. No, but you have a level TOP at 274, and you have level 2 at 263
and 11 inches. So
11, okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't reading that correctly. Okay, so it is 10 feet, and then the first level is 255 to 263.11,
And those are the existing 8-foot ceiling first floor. So, you know, the older buildings were all done pretty much 8
Right,
feet.
right, at 8
addition of
feet.
vaulted.
So are you pushing that up to 9 feet?
No, it's staying at 8 feet.
Okay, all right.
The
Thank
first
you.
floor stays at the 8 feet. We're going to use the existing floors where we can on that second level.
Okay. And then Mr. Gregory or Mr. Reese or both of you, did staff provide for you access or a copy or a way to find out our guidelines, these single-family design board guidelines? Did you read that document?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and in that document, it talks about neighborhood compatibility. It talks about good neighbor guidelines. Did you read all of those?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, the good neighbor guidelines are important because that's where it encourages you to reach out to all your neighbors at the beginning of a project. So, okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions, please? I don't think he's here.
Mr. Ziegler, could I ask if you turn your webcam on? It looks like your microphone is live, but I'm not, there we go. Mr.
Hey there,
Ziegler,
Jonathan.
we can't hear you.
Any questions?
I don't know. It looks like your microphone is on in green, but I'm not hearing you. Do you have headphones plugged in by chance, or I'm going to, one thing you might want to do, Mr. Ziegler, is if you're able to switch from computer audio to phone call audio and then back to computer on your GoToWebinar control panel. Mr. Chair, I might recommend while Mr. Ziegler is, try that again, Mr. Ziegler. Yeah, I think that you might want to try to call in instead and just dial the number, like use your phone to dial in the numbers that show up when you have phone call. And Mr. Chair, just for efficiency's sake, you might want to keep going through.
Okay. All right, so I actually have no questions at this time, so I'm going to go back to the board for comments. So I'm going to go down the list. Board Member James, do you have any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I do. My first comment would be that I'm quite uncomfortable with the proposed building, both in style and mass bulk and scale. To me, the architecture has absolutely nothing to do with any sort of Spanish style. And the main entry seems very awkward, and the whole thing looks very industrial and uninviting, I'm sorry to say. Yeah, that's my comment.
All right, thank you. Board Member Farrell, do you have any comments, please?
I do. So I know this area, and all those homes up above, they're all done in a similar Spanish style way. And this home does not present itself with the rest of the neighborhood. I do like your idea of putting your main living space on the second floor. I think that's a great idea and a lovely use of the space and the view. But I am not supportive of the size of this home. And I also do not feel that the design is in keeping with the neighborhood.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, comments, please?
Yes.
Are you there?
Here.
There you are.
I've been here all along. I agree with Jen and Lisa that everything they said, that the fact that there's nothing Spanish about this house. and it is very industrial to me. And as far as our guidelines, it doesn't fit neighborhood compatibility with all the other houses in the area. The only one it does fit is, I guess it's the house 1550, I think. That's the house right next door on the same, that was developed at the same time, which is a asphalt shingled roof with plastered sides. And all of a sudden we're going to be not necessarily looking at, but we are going to try to decide whether we will allow this very massive house to be built in the area. There are probably other houses in the area that are that size up the hill, but I can't support this house the way it looks because it doesn't meet our guidelines of neighborhood compatibility and size, bulk, and scale. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Motisha. Mr. Sweeney, comments, please.
Mr. Chair, I think Mr. Roberts goes next.
Oh, I'm sorry, Robert. Go ahead. I apologize.
No problem. I agree with the previous comments that the proposed home seems incompatible with the neighborhood around here. It's a really large home is what's being presented here. And also that site is has a retaining wall around the whole thing. So the site is essentially built up out of the ground. And then you're proposing a pretty large home that's going to be put on top of it. So it doesn't really match anything else around there when I look at it on Google Earth, and I'm also familiar with driving around up in that area. And then also the 3rd story roof deck is, I kind of see as a way of like sneaking in a way to have a deck up there, which I don't think is appropriate. So I agree with the previous comments. I don't think that this is the right proposal for this site. So that's my input on it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney.
Yes. So a couple of comments. I understand that these folks want to build a home, and it sounds like you're going to be there for a long time. Got a little one in your arms. Congratulations. I'm visiting for the first time in 9 months my grandnephew today down south. So it's been fun all day watching him. So, but the important thing is that we're not a board that looks at homes with regards in a lot of ways to the users of the home, because these buildings will last a lot longer than a lot of us will be here. And I shared my experience just recently. I'm having to sell my parents' home that have lived in it for 60 years. And they started out the same way a lot of young couples did. But at some point it's going to change over and it'll go to new owners. So we have to look at the context of the neighborhood. So I agree with all of my colleagues so far. The size, bulk, and scale of this house, and there's 3 different things here. The size is too big. The FAR needs to get closer to 85%, and I would in fact say it needs to be at 85% because of the ADU that's on the site, even though we're not allowed to have a review of the ADU. But that combination plus this combination, I think this is going to have to be at 85%. There is a way to do that. We're not saying you need to eliminate the functions you want to put in your home. And I realize you're working from home. We're going to see a lot more of that, given the change in our whole culture because of COVID-19. So I understand that, but in a lot of cases, we've had people reduce the square footage of homes to get to the 85%. They just had to make a few things smaller and make some rearrangements. And a good talented architect can lead you in that direction. The 2nd floor area is proportionally way too high. I think the ceiling height needs to get dropped down at minimum to 9 feet, not 10 feet. The outside exterior deck, I understand that you're reversing the traditional living space 1st floor to the 2nd floor. I understand that concept, having done 2 or 3 houses myself like that. But the deck is too large off the 2nd floor. The deck needs to be smaller. It can be split up into 2 decks. Perhaps another approach. The location of the AC units on the roof is not acceptable because the noise carried above is going to travel up that hill to the people that live up the hill further. So that's not acceptable. It's certainly not acceptable as a rooftop deck that's acceptable to anyone. We have that problem across the mesa. So I'm not going to be supportive of that. And then finally, no, the style is not anywhere close to the architectural style in this neighborhood. And the neighborhood, in my opinion, will go all the way up to the end of this Del Oceano and the beginning as it comes off of Cliff Drive. This is not part of this neighborhood. One of our obligations is to find neighborhood compatibility, and that's a subjective decision made by this board in the interest of the city of Santa Barbara. As the designer of the Santa Barbara Airport Terminal, I can tell you that there is a constant struggle between people in the community wanting it to be contemporary and those wanting it to be mission style, Spanish, colonial Spanish, a number of titles. And quite frankly, that project was led by that effort when it started out the other way. So I've been through that. So this project needs to return with a complete rethinking of the style of the home to be more compatible with the neighborhood, or this board probably will not be in a position to find the findings that we're required to find for neighborhood compatibility, for compatibility materials and architecture, et cetera. A full landscaping plan is going to be needed since most of the site is being disturbed. If there's areas where it's not being disturbed, that needs to be indicated on the landscape plan. We'll certainly want to see a relationship with the homes below. You indicated, yes, the homes above won't see much of this house, et cetera. That's not always the case, but there is an impact on the homes right below you. And that was part of our discussion when we talked about the deck on the ADU, when the deck became a subject of our review at the earlier submission under the separate permit. So the board has to look at all of this in context. And we have to look at it in the context of the ability for it to fit in with the neighborhood. So those are my comments. I would look forward to the architect returning with a home that's going to be much more compatible in terms of its size meaning FAR, the bulk meaning the largeness of the way the home's currently designed, and the scale that has to do with the relative floor-to-floor heights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Ziegler, do you have comments, please? Can we hear you? Mr. Ziegler, your technical.
Yeah, Mr. Ziegler, this is Ellen Kokinda. It looks like, for whatever reason, it looks like you're connected. One thing I might suggest is if you leave the webinar briefly and come back on, that might be able to help, or you can dial in. I sent you a chat function with some instructions for how to do that.
So for sake of time, city staff, can you give me some guidance here? What should I do here? Should I wait, or what do you suggest?
Mr. Chair, I would go ahead and I'm going to yield to Ted.
Hi, Ted.
Mr. Chair, at this point, we are trying to get Mr. Ziegler on audio so that he can give his comments. It's up to you if you would like to, have a brief recess so that we can figure that out and get Mr. Ziegler's comments on. I believe we are at the end of the list, correct, for the roster for comments?
Well, I have comments.
Brian,
yeah.
Except for you.
my comments pretty much echo what's already been said, so I'm fine. So,
Okay. Well, let's
Um,
try, let's see.
Can Mr. Ziegler type in his comments, possibly?
Message them.
Yes.
I don't believe that we've, used that as an option in one of these GoToWebinars yet, but I don't see a reason why you couldn't type them in and staff could read them.
This is Ellen Kokinda again. Mr. Chair, through you,
Yes.
I might suggest you do a 5-minute recess. Again, Mr. Ziegler just has to click on the audio control or the phone call option for audio, and then all the phone numbers will appear, and then he can call in. So we can hear him that way. And it looks like he's already in the process of doing that. He switched to audio, but now he needs to enter all the phone numbers and PIN numbers associated with that show up.
Okay, Ellen, so it's 5:17, so let's take a adjournment, come back at 5:25.
7 minutes?
Okay, what's 5 minutes? 17? 18. Well, it's an even number. Yes, 5:25.
5:23.
5:23, fine, 5:23.
Mr. Ziegler, can you test your microphone? It looks like I just went green again. Mr. Ziegler, can you hear us?
Oh boy.
My recommendation, Mr. Chair, and to staff is if we can't figure this out in 5 minutes, that you go ahead and proceed with the meeting. That's pretty standard. So if we can't get Mr. Ziegler, then again, I don't want to hold up the applicant and the rest of the board members, but that's usually our cutoff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. So I'm going to revoke the break and I apologize to Mr. Ziegler. Hopefully we'll get this figured out at our next meeting, but for the sake of time and to move things forward, I'd like to ask someone to entertain a motion. Who would like to do that on the board, please? These are comments only.
All right. So I would like to entertain a motion that the board is not supportive of this project at this time. We find that the size, bulk, and scale of this proposal is not in keeping with the neighborhood. The design is not in keeping with the neighborhood. To follow our guidelines, homes need to be compatible with the neighborhood, which we consider to be from Cliff Drive all the way up La Vista
Ms. Farrell.
Drive.
I apologize for the interruption. Mr.
Yes.
Chair, I believe
Yes.
that Mr. Sweeney and Richard stepped away initially when you called the break. I'm not sure that we should proceed with the motion until they return.
Okay, so are you?
I was listening. I was just stepped away from the camera.
I'm here. I had to use a bathroom, but I'm back.
Okay, now Mr. Ziegler appeared. I love Zoom calls. This is fun. Mr. Ziegler, are you available to, can we hear you? Okay, so Mr. Ziegler, we still cannot hear you. So Jan, could you please continue with the motion?
Yes. So we would like you to consider trying to keep your FAR at 85% of the lot size, possibly reducing the deck. We would also request that the AC units be moved to someplace else, not on the roof. We would like to see a full landscape plan when you come back. We also think that following good neighbor guidelines, it's very important for you to communicate with your neighbors and share your plans with them as this progresses. This project will need to come back to the full board. And that's my motion.
Thank you, Jan. Do I have a second?
Yes, I second it.
Thank you. Any further comments? May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. This is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair James,
Yes,
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Say yes. Jonathan, say yes. He did it. I saw it.
All right, thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Did someone, Lisa, did you have something to say?
no, thank you. Mm-mm.
Okay, thank you. Being that that's the last item on the agenda, I move to close the single family design board for September 28th. Thank you very much.